Good morning, LinkedIn friends. Value First Nation. Can I start saying that yet?
Oh, I love that.
I think so. Welcome to another episode of Value First Measurement with Danielle Urban. Happy Monday, Danielle.
Happy Monday.
Indeed. A measurement Monday too. I'm gonna try all the phrases
Ooh, I'm
today.
so here for it. Some
See which one sticks.
alliteration, some culture building.
Indeed. Last week we talked about the evidence double standard that we see in organizations between marketing and sales, and whose budgets get approved easily and whose don't, and whose get under the magnifying glass and got to measure everything. Um, and so we jump across the chasm this week to talk about unmeasurable things. Um, Embracing the unmeasurable more and more, I think, is a requirement if you want to even just be uh, satisfied with success right now. It's like, it's working around you. All these digital mechanisms are in front of you. None of them work the way that we would love for them to. We put all this work into trying to create visibility. Meanwhile, the person right to our right is be like, yeah, I just saw you yesterday, or I just saw this thing over here. What you said was great. Uh, and it's like, okay, cool, but I got to look at the views over here.
hmm
Um, what comes to mind when I say embrace the unmeasurable?
Gives me a lot of anxiety as like a type A marketer. But I've learned this firsthand, and I think it's become so painfully apparent in this sort of ramp up to my own business and running our own consulting agency. Because in my past life, like I was hired on as a marketer to a startup. Startups want to know what happens with every single dollar. Like they need to see it all laid out. And so I got really obsessive about measuring. And then I just made the leap and was like, I don't know, I need to fill my schedule and make enough money to live. And I'm just going to figure out what that looks like. I have a very strong network, thankfully. And then the videos that we started doing over a year ago now, people will come out of the woodwork and be like, oh, yeah, I saw your videos. Those are looking great. I have this other thing I want to talk about. And so, even if the topic had nothing to do with what they needed help with, it didn't matter. It was just me being in their feed, that like recency reminder. And that's not a number that we can measure. Like you and I have talked about capturing that sort of qualifying feedback, not the like quantified numbers that you can capture off these videos, because we all know LinkedIn's terrible about it. And so seeing that come through, I'm like, I just have to let go of my past and like move forward with whatever I feel like doing and considering success in a much grander scale these days.
Yeah. Oh, and it's not hard to like understand why, because like there was a world before digital measurements of everything.
I know.
And when people are just showing up at events and networking events, and surprise, like referral and word of mouth, still the best way to
Yep.
fill pipeline. Like there was nobody measuring anything like
Yeah.
back then. It would just build relationships with everybody around you that it made sense to build a relationship with, create value, and there would be value exchanges. Like literally that's what business is supposed to be. So thank you, SAS, for like
Just
trying to do this a different way. Appreciate the sentiment. But it's coming around full circle because now AI, like, it's actually really easy, I think, if you have a differentiated experience and message to kind of force your way in, like to AI results because of this. It's like, okay, here's the inquiry. Is it being talked about online?
yeah.
And if the answer is yes, it will respond in kind. And but this takes showing up in ways that we never have before.
hmm
Um, and like what you mentioned, I mean, you just shared like a clip from a show I had like November of last year, right?
Yeah.
Shared in Slack like today. yeah, neither of us we can't measure that. So yeah, we could do the work of like qualitatively, maybe at some point I was going to try and track all of this stuff, and there would be a HubSpot record that actually has a field in it
Did you
that
try and
says
do that?
qualitative notes. I did it for about a week, but this would be the kind of thing like shared in Slack of this group, right, by this person, and then you back it all out. Who are they? They're a job title, and this is how they talked about the mess. There's so much that could be, mined out of there in terms of gold and trying to standardize and systematize this stuff.
Mhm.
But where it has gone off the rails is unless we can do that, then we don't show up every day,
Yeah.
right? Like so it's the constant struggle between like output and outcomes where if you do the right output, like, and this is really, it's easy as value first. Like, is the thing I'm about to do like going to create value or trust, like in any way?
Yeah.
If yes, like, okay, maybe I don't need to just measure it all up front, but let's just get it done. And like you say, I had a great conversation with Rob Jones about this early in the year. And most of the people that know me on LinkedIn have no idea what content I do. Like, they don't know how much I do. They might know it's about HubSpot, but that's about it. It just, but when they have something, when they will think of me, and if I show up at the right time, like they won't be afraid to reach out because now I'm a familiar face. I think this is the whole top of the funnel right now,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and I saw some chatter recently about I think I bring up Nick Sackett's name every single week, but I think it was one of his posts. He's putting out some great content.
Yes, he is.
But he was talking about how budgets are shifting to experiential marketing because the way that we show up and the things that we measure in the digital world are just getting so obnoxious and cumbersome. Like if you think about even just a small scale event, I love to run my solos meetup at Inbound every year. It brings me no sales. I just get to hang out with my friends and I buy a couple pizzas and a couple round of beers. This year, planning to do the same thing, take it up a notch, and actually have a dedicated space that we're like paying for. And I love doing that. And I'm going to keep doing it because it builds community. And that, 15 steps forward comes back around because people want to work with us, people refer business to us. We all get to hang out together and like build each other up and produce things like this, like that sort of that live in-person connection is so far from anything that I could measure in like a business impact way. Yet I know in my soul that like it's worth doing. I cannot tell you why, except for how I just described it. But like I can't tie that even to business outcomes. I can just tell you it's a good idea and I want to keep doing it. And as long as the budget is reasonable, we're going to keep doing it because we feel like it. But when you have so much, if I had taken that in past years and been like, you have to register, I'm going to check you in, and it's like 12 people that show up at a bar, that ruins the experience. Like, sure, I can get all of that and I can track referrals to all the people who showed up there and I can, follow up with them and have more conversations about building business together, partnering. But like, that sounds horrible. No one wants to come to that party. So you sort of have to let go of that to make it worth creating the thing that you want to really create in the moment and like forgetting about the downstream measurement because you just need to create the thing that's valuable live in person that's immeasurable, and maybe someday it'll all shake out.
Well, it is shaken out for the
Yeah.
people that choose to do it that way for
Weird.
sure. It's hard to operate in this space while doing that because you always have the question like, well, what's the ROI? And
Yeah.
it's like, that's where we get back to first principles though. And like when you're aligned on North Star, because I've been thinking about this a lot lately with value first and profoundly and how do we actually start like helping people transform like the end
Mhm.
user level that everybody's always thinking about how to do better there in terms of ensuring success without selling too much, without trying to get points, all these things. When I started Let's Build Media last year, um, the mission was help experts like share their expertise.
Yeah.
It was not create business for Chris, right?
Right.
And so start using a golf analogy, like when you hit left or right, the usual, like the most common reason for doing that was because you're aiming left or right. Like, and so when we come back to like what we're trying to accomplish as a business, this is where alignment is so important. Like when you can get this alignment and then show up in public, super, obviously a fantastic example of this,
Yep. I was thinking the same.
right? Like you don't care who's the salesperson, who's the marketing person, who's
Yeah.
the leader. They're just all showing up the same. And this is where it's like full funnel business development, like full funnel customer success, just account nurturing, all the things, they show up in the same way. And you don't have to measure everything. I would love to know all the things that they don't measure,
Yeah.
right? That people are used to measuring. Because when you show up in this way, sure, we've gotten better at LinkedIn. And I appreciate what HubSpot's doing, making it easier to bring all that stuff
Yeah.
into HubSpot. But all the interactions, right? There's so much that's unseen. And an example of actually experiencing the metrics related to all these lives is that when I first started doing this last March, a couple weeks in, I started doing some shows with Max Cohen,
Yep.
right? And our first one had like 49 like viewers when I looked at it like within the hour after. And then 24 hours later, it said 24, right?
Yeah.
So it's like these two LinkedIn lives of like, there's a live LinkedIn, and then there's like all the archived on demand data LinkedIn. And this seems to be, the archive data seems to be greatly impacted by first, second, third level connections, like all the security settings that every individual person has. There's so many things in the way. What's not in the way is when we show up at inbound and people are like, yeah, I love all your content.
Yeah.
And they've never interacted with any of it.
Yeah.
Right.
I get that all the time. I'm always just surprised people see this. But I think
Exactly. Because
it's
that's we're
funny.
used to seeing, like, it would be nice to have indicators. I'll be honest.
Yeah. I mean, but
Right.
me as a guest, like my visibility into your metrics on these videos is like none. I don't think I can see anything. I can see comments and maybe impressions, but I'm not even sure I can see that because it's your post. So like the structure of LinkedIn prevents that, but I don't care. Like it's fun to have conversations, and it somehow in some sphere of influence is coming back around where people see my face on LinkedIn and remember me and have conversations with me. And then sometimes these become relevant and I can go back and link them in conversations. But, you know, that's not why we show up. I think we're going to like deep dive into why do I show up for this? And I don't really have a good answer, like, because it's fun and I get to hang out with my friends. But I think there's sort of this world that we can take, you know, 15 years back and look at what were we measuring then go back even further, and that's where we should kind of land. Because 15 years ago, let's say you have a big conference or a big event, and at that point you would measure things like social mentions, and that's where a lot of like Hootsuite monitoring came into play, and there are like the PR mention tools, and you would do all of your analyst relations to get the coverage there, and you do all these things to have some data that you could measure outside of your own channels, and sort of build that capture that just gives you a pulse or a hint of your sphere of influence and of what's happening outside of your own properties, like your website and the event where people are showing up. And so then if you go back even before that and, maybe go another 20 years earlier, that was almost before I was born, so I can't speak to it very intelligently, but then we start to look at like, what did they care about then? Think about like Mad Men. You put out ads and just hope the sales go up. And in some ways, that's what we're coming back to, because there's so many channels we can't measure. The things that have impact are immeasurable, like these videos or having a meetup with your friends because we all do the same thing. Like those types of things are not worth measuring. but may at some point contribute to a bottom line. So, what is the measurement for your business planning? It's how much budget can we put towards events and how much revenue went up, and just correlate the two and hope for the best.
And like expect the best. Like when you
Yeah,
have good people like shipping great product and all this loyalty in the market, um, like it's just if you can remove this layer of anxiety of like the need to measure stuff and the need to create comparisons of like, well, if this thing was good and this thing wasn't so good, we need to be able to like action. Sure. But there's so much stuff in between, like we talk about, like the Slack, like the dark funnel, the Slack channels,
right.
like, and like just walk it back from anything you've labeled as word of mouth or referral.
It's
Like,
all of my business. So
right, just
it's everything.
do your best to document what has happened a few times. And the more of the unmeasurable stuff, like that's the thing, like you need to embrace the unmeasurable because when you don't, you think you can create a complete picture of ROI
Right.
solely based on the things that you're measuring. And
Yeah.
that has like put businesses on a path where we're still doing ads that clearly aren't working. We're still
Yeah.
doing outbound emails that clearly are not working. And that's where, yes, you might get the one or two hits, but just understand like the 0.001 conversion rates that we've grown to accept. All that stuff takes effort and time that is not being put into the places like LinkedIn, like
Right.
communities, like being present in the market,
Mhm.
right? And I think that's the miss. Have you been successful or have you seen any others kind of compare like do let me try some of this stuff in place of like say 10%, 20%, 50% of the email or the traditional thing and then like kind of experience some way to show like okay clearly this is the thing we should be spending our time on.
Yeah, I haven't had any clients make that shift yet. I think everyone is still kind of stuck in this is the job they were hired to do. Like there are too many layers in that. There are too many layers deep to really come all the way out of it. Um, but I think as AI is more prevalent, if it even can be at this point. And we're seeing AI influence more of those sort of copy paste volume plays, be it in cold email, writing PPC ads, doing the bidding for your PPC ads, doing a lot of the measurement for that type of thing. It becomes so rote, like it's just the same thing. You're just spinning your wheels faster in the mud and you're not getting anywhere. And I think that's where we'll start to see the pivot into next year, and see those budgets shift even more into things that are not just, plug and play nurtures and PPC ads and all of this. I think it's you have to peel back the layers of like what are you holding your team accountable to, and how do you shift that North Star metric? I think we talked about that in sort of the culture shifts a few weeks ago. How do you shift that North Star metric away from like you need to have 100 MQLs down to something that's like, let's all just grow revenue in a way that is, enough to appease your board members and grow the business in a realistic way and be forecasted. But that's yet another layer in the mix where like you've got to sift through all of that. So I think we'll see it. It will be glaringly obvious and we'll all be in a bit of a panic for a little bit. And then we'll figure out how to adjust to make room for the things that are meaningful and matter in a way that is not measurable.
Yeah. And we're here to help you like not panic. There is a path. It's just not measurable in the ways that we're used to. So trying to get better at not endlessly um, uh, like transforming the content that I've created in this framework. So I'm gonna read through what I've created for this principle 3 here, because it's, if you can start here, because it's not hard to go to the board and show what's not working.
Yeah.
Like, if you compare any of the traditional, marketing performance metrics, like, find one that's as good or better than it used to be,
Yeah.
right? They're not, like, they're nowhere close. And when you can look to HubSpot, and they own this space, like, they created like SEO, and their numbers tanking, and you have their VP of marketing, Kieran, talking about personality-led growth.
Hmm.
That completely takes away from the corporate brand, where everything is measurable and
Yeah.
everything is owned, and puts it in spaces where nothing is measurable and nothing's owned, unless you create some elaborate infrastructure, which I think HubSpot is trying to do. And they're trying to give us that with a lot of the social tools that we're getting
Hmm.
access to right now.
Yeah.
But instead, so see that writing on the wall, and just, like, try to start from this place, and then build your case. Like, if you can believe that these things are true and are working for lots of people, right? So, principle 3, we will create space for the unmeasurable. We believe beyond reductionist thinking that some of the most important business factors resist quantification. We commit to valuing qualitative insights alongside quantitative data, recognizing that everything that counts, that not everything that counts can be counted. This means we will include narrative and observational data in decision making processes rather than relying only on quantified metrics. Create forums for sharing insights that don't fit into measurement frameworks rather than ignoring qualitative intelligence. If you don't want to spend any money creating that forum, hi LinkedIn.
Slack communities.
Explicitly acknowledge the limitations of quantitative data rather than treating metrics as complete business truth.
Hmm.
We will include immeasurable value discussions in planning and review sessions rather than focusing only on trackable outcomes. And we've got to train our leaders to balance quantitative and qualitative inputs in decisions rather than defaulting to numerical analysis. So, as an implementation example, instead of making customer success decisions based solely on usage metrics and engagement scores, create regular qualitative insight sessions where customer facing teams share contextual understanding about customer challenges, aspirations, and relationship dynamics that don't appear in measurement systems. That's the thing. Like, this sounds like, as soon as you say qualitative and unmeasurable, it sounds like, oh man, it's so impossible. Every single person on your customer facing team can fill in
Writing
this
down
gap for
everything.
you, like, immediately, like today,
Yeah.
right? Like, and they could probably take all day doing it. And now with AI, this is all about transitioning and transformation away from industrial age thinking. You can record any of those conversations, and AI will help you make it measurable, like, in some way, like trend analysis. Like, that's the thing. Like, I got to imagine Kieran probably has access to one of the best data sets from both a quantitative and qualitative situation. So when I see him moving towards this personality led growth idea,
Yeah.
like, while also AI is happening, and the word of mouth results, the reviews results that are showing up, and instead of questioning it and saying, "Well, I'm doing it this way," it's like, "Yeah, that's how it was done 30 years ago." Like,
Right.
word of mouth, everything. Every single person
Process.
out there should want 100% of their pipeline to be labeled as word of mouth,
Yeah.
right?
Definitely. I think we're starting to see that shift. Hearing you read that out loud reminded me of some examples I've seen recently. So we talked last week about that drink company. And then someone else posted on LinkedIn was like, "This is fantastic." I was like, "Yes, it is." And then in the same time frame, Nick Lafferty, who was previously a solopreneur but joined a company called Profound doing AI optimization for companies. It's a tool to help with measurement and discovery. And he was writing about how he like cosplayed as an SDR for a couple weeks. Like he went and closed business. He is the marketing lead, and he went and closed business on the phones. And the context that he gets from that is absolutely invaluable for how he can move forward with marketing strategy. He's learning how the early funnel thinks and what they care about and where they might hear about it. And he's having the conversation as a salesperson, but also is able to gather that marketing intel and take that into their strategy and planning. I think that should be like every marketer's onboarding experience. Like go be an SDR for 2 weeks. But there are so many different ways where we are actually seeing this start to poke through and have little pockets of light along the way.
Yeah. And it like that's the thing. Like if you can remove the layer of like, rose-colored glasses of the measurability that we've been trained to think about for the last 15, 20 years, it makes like 100% sense. And when you can realize that's what something like LinkedIn affords you to do, where anybody from the organization can show up and learn and network. That's the mission of the platform, right? And it's got 1 billion people on it, right? So don't tell me your audience isn't there, even if they've just got a profile, right? We're not seeing that in the data in terms of like inaccessible audiences, like 0% accessibility in most B2B like situations. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the best place, the place they're always hanging out at. But if you want these shortcut digital mechanisms to be able to reach out to people when the email inbox is failing you, right? It's a great option. And when you start showing up, it reveals itself as far as like Clay's GTM engineering concept is a great example. They're not hiring GTM specialists or sales specialists. It's like, do you know your shit? All right,
Then come figure
here's
it out
our
with us.
program. We're calling it GTM engineering, and it's about everybody is full funnel, everything. Because you can be. That's the part that is enabled by AI. Like you can show up in this way consistently every day. And as long as you can turn on, I think the part that doesn't feel like it scales, because it doesn't when you put it next to everything else, right, is the reaction. Like when somebody's there to comment and you're not there, it almost can have very little value, right? But when you're right there, it can turn into like guaranteed wins, right?
Right.
Because it's just like being in the conversation. And that's why people are on these platforms. So I think I might have come up with this last week after our show, but you think of SEO as social engine optimization instead of search. Like
Don't bastardize this, Chris.
it starts
We're
to
not
click.
optimizing.
It starts to click. You just got to get away from the old
Yeah.
metrics, like people.
Yeah.
It's the writings in every AI wall you've seen right now.
Yeah.
And the fact is, like Danielle said, this way more fun. Like
Yeah.
way more fun. Like
Yeah.
it happens to create great content. Like, and you don't have to get in your head about all this stuff. Like this trackability, this conversion. Like, oh man. Right before our show, like, and this little wrap, like, somebody said, like, I was, they were inspired by what's been happening with me and other people in the group. They've started doing it, and now they've got to turn down jobs just because they've
Incredible.
started doing content
Yeah.
about their expertise. And it's not even about the topic that the jobs are coming in for. And here's the traditional comparison that everybody should resonate with. I know that I've taken action before on an email where it was just a weekly newsletter, and I responded with a question that had nothing to do with the newsletter. It was just the person that I had been thinking about, and I had a question for them, and now they're in my inbox, and it's easy to hit reply. But that had nothing to do with the convertibility and the content of the newsletter. just the fact that they were there at that moment. Like no subject line measurements make sense there. And that's the kind of stuff. It's harder and harder to show up in the inbox in that way just because people are overwhelmed, not because like the content's worse,
Right.
right? That happens to be how LinkedIn is built, like built for that, right? Email's never been a conversational mechanism.
Yeah.
So, but she said the same thing. She has no idea why it's working.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like you gotta embrace the fact that it's just you being there day in, day out with consistency. Like, and why measure it? Like the pipeline's great, like full,
Yeah.
right? So
There was a very short period of time where I used a plugin to help me write LinkedIn posts. It had like an AI thing in it. So it would help you generate a hook. It would help you generate like the call to action. It would help keep track of your hashtags. It would collect all the metrics on it. And I was like, wow, I don't care. I can go look at my metrics and sometimes be impressed with them. Occasionally I'll have a post take off, but I just don't care. I'm just going to post into the void and hope that somebody out there cares. Even if one person cares, we're going to have a really fun conversation about it.
right. And how like, oh man, examples after examples, and it's all stuck in our heads, which is the hard part. But like we're seeing this happen more and more, and value first and profoundly definitely working on some stuff to like make it super apparent. I think we're really close based on the pain that we're seeing in the market. Like, because the fact is, like, none of the other stuff's working. Like, none of it. And I'm sorry that's how your whole infrastructure is built, but we've got to find a way out of it. And and it's all mindset. It's almost all mindset because remember a couple weeks ago you shared. Well, and then this example, I promise. Uh, like you randomly see a transcript with a call and somebody mentions seeing you on a live,
Mm-hmm.
right? Of course, my gut reaction, first of all, is like, F yeah. But then second is like, which one was it?
They probably couldn't
And
even tell me. Doesn't matter.
it's like, we don't know. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's like, bam,
Yeah.
trust built. Doesn't matter what the topic was. When it shows up unsolicitedly
Mm-hmm.
on these conversations, it's like there's no quicker path to trust.
Yeah.
So this was a fun one. We'll be back with principle 4 next week, which is about signals over scores.
Mm.
I'll have to get some permissions from Casey on this one.
Maybe I'll see if I can bring a friend. We'll chat
There you go.
offline.
Yeah. Now, thanks so much, Danielle, for wisdom today. And we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Have a great week, everybody.